Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we love having our City Current Signature Speaker Series speakers come on, sharing their wisdom and a glimpse into their world. In this case, we're talking about the power of positive energy and being authentic and standing out, just like Red Shoes. We're talking about the Red Shoes Living movement. The best-selling author of the book, Red Shoes Living, Stand Out for the Positive in How You Work and How You Live. We're talking with Lonnie Mayne. Lonnie, how are you doing?
Well, you just got me fired up. I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. I'm sitting here in my studio office in Park City, Utah, where we had record snow this year and probably a record snow melt. So it's been interesting to see the seasons change.
Well, we get to talk all about the good work that you're doing. And when you talk about seasons changing and taking that into, positive energy and looking at innovation and change and all that and how it plays a role, let's go ahead and dive in with a little bit of your backstory, because you have a really amazing backstory with your dad and wrestling and, what led you to this world that you're in. So give us a little bit of a teaser on your backstory.
Yeah. So I, as a young boy, my father was a professional wrestler and wrestled the likes of Andre the Giant and Rocky Johnson, which is the father of Dwayne Johnson. So all these crazy characters. And my father passed away when I was quite young, when I was 10 years old. But I got to experience kind of his life and watched how he treated people as this, big time wrestling guy, 6-time world champion. And the impression that was made on me was, outside of wrestling, how he treated people. And so as I kind of went through school and went to college and came out of college and went into the workforce, that always stuck with me. And so I thought, and by the way, my dad wore a pair of red wrestling boots most of the time, which ties a little bit into the Red Shoes. But it stuck with me, and I thought, no matter where I go in this world, I want to be competitive, I want to be successful, but I also want to be kind and respectful to those that I'm working with and working for, and that has served me incredibly well over the years. And so that was really the essence of kind of bringing that to the forefront, which led to creating this Red Shoes Living movement that we created a few years ago.
And so a lot of kind of cool stories, and you share a ton as a speaker, obviously, that tie all these pieces together. Give us a little bit of an illustration around the Red Shoes and where that idea came from.
Yeah. When I came out of college, I went into the corporate world. And at that time, companies were buying other companies, and there was lots of mergers and acquisitions happening. And as a young leader, I recognized the most important thing that you could keep alive as you go through change, similar to what we've been through the last 3 years, is the human spirit, allowing and creating space for people to be the best version of themselves, not too unlike what we're going through now. There's a lot of change in corporate America, a lot of change in business. People are trying to perform at the highest level, but this change kind of creates fear and compression, and people sometimes are not the best version of themselves because they're afraid. They're afraid to step into, a world of the unknown. So as I recognized that as a young leader, I thought, what can I do? What's my role in helping people feel safe, in helping people really be the best version of themselves? And so I created a simple philosophy in working with people and said, look, let's stand out for the positive in how we work, the work that we do together. We can define that in many different ways. And let's stand out for the positive in the world as human beings. And it becomes this reciprocal where we go to work, we stand out for the positive in the role that we have, the work that we do, the way we treat other people, the way we treat the vendors, the way we treat our clients and customers. And then as we, leave work and go back into the world, the way we treat the people at the grocery store or at the restaurant or our neighbors, let's do the same thing. And so that really caught on with people and reminded people that the human factor and keeping the human spirit alive is really one of the most important things that you can do in a very noisy and kind of crazy world that we live in today. So as I, developed that and continued to work in corporate America, I became the guy that whenever we acquired another company, that I was the one that stood up and started to talk this way. More importantly, we had to act that way. So I had to get all the other leaders to step into their version of Red Shoes. And where Red Shoes came from, because everybody always asks, what's this crazy thing about Red Shoes? is I created the philosophy, which I mentioned here a minute ago, and then I created a mindset and a framework that could be applied to leadership. The framework could be applied to the culture of an organization. The framework could be applied to the customer experience or the guest experience, and then it could be applied to your life. I left corporate America. I went to work for a small little tech company, and I invested in this company. And my children were like, "Dad, you cannot wear the same clothes that you wore in corporate America in a tech company. You're the oldest guy in this company." And so they went with their mother to the mall, and they bought me black t-shirts similar to what I've got on today, a hoodie. They bought me a pair of jeans, blue jeans, and a pair of red Van high top tennis shoes. And I remember coming home, and I go, "This is what you're wearing tomorrow." And I said, "You guys, I can't wear that into the office." But I did. And about a week after that, I was sitting in front of our small team. I had the same clothes on, basically. And I was talking to the team about, look, we're a small company that's competing with these big organizations, and how we're going to differentiate ourselves is with that philosophy of Red Shoes Living, which is we're going to stand out for the positive in everything we do, from how we communicate to people, to how we send an email, to how we pay attention and increase our awareness and listen, to our teammates and to our customers and vendor partners, and to every little thing that we do. And as I was going down this dissertation of how we wanted to stand out for the positive, our head of marketing said, "Lonnie, I totally get what you're saying. We want to differentiate ourselves and stand out just like those red shoes you have on today are standing out." And it stuck. So that became the reminder, the proxy for how we wanted to show up in the world. Now, it's a little bit of a curse, because if I don't wear red shoes and I'm at the airport and somebody's heard my keynote, they call me out. They're like, "Where are your red shoes?" And I say, it's in here, right? It's on the inside. But that became our competitive advantage. That became how we hired people. That became how, even if we had to move people in different parts of the company, we wanted to make sure we did that in a red shoes type of way. We wanted it to be simple. In corporate America, it gets complex with KPIs and metrics and changes, and it gets very, sophisticated. So I recognized way back then that if we could keep things simple, if I tie it back to my father a little bit too, I remember how he treated everybody, from the security guards at the arena to the people that were taping his ankles and hands, to the wrestlers, to the fans, to everybody. He treated them with so much kindness and respect, and a level of awareness that I've never really seen before. He just paid attention. He knew who, people's children were, et cetera, knew their life stories. And when he passed away, what the other impression it had on me is, there were hundreds of thousands of people that showed up to tell stories of my father. So, all of that carried forward for me. We took that little tech company and we grew it, from about 14 people. We grew it into about 1,700 people in over 100 countries by putting Red Shoes Living at the center of everything that we did.
Give us a little bit around the framework, because I look at the power of this as ownership. You're taking ownership of being a champion for the company, the organization, for your community, for helping others, the positive energy. And one of the stories that you shared in Nashville that has stuck is, just when you're on a plane and you see someone who needs help, are you the one that's going to jump up and help them? Or are you going to sit in your chair and watch somebody else do it? Or are you going to sit in your chair and complain? Like, where do you fall on that spectrum? And I think if, Andy Andrews, one of his was a noticer, right? Like being a noticer. Are you paying attention and noticing what others are going through and where you can plug in and make a difference? And I think that's the power of what you're talking about. It's ownership. It's being a noticer. It's taking action to help someone else. And so give us a little bit of a teaser on the framework and some of the, specific tips, if you will, but just around this idea of ownership and energy, just like we're talking about.
Absolutely. This is really important. And by the way, I hired Andy Andrews to speak at our conference, our tech company, years ago. So I know Andy well. So, if you go back to kind of this corporate America and then into the technology space where I've been for the last 15 years, I guess now, we wanted to keep something simple as a framework. So, for years and years, I would hear speakers come and talk, all inspiring, all great messages. But my concern was, do those messages stay with people? So as we developed, a keynote and we wrote the book around the framework that you are referring to, we said, let's keep it simple. What are the attributes? What are the behaviors that all of us already know that may drift from time to time because this negative noise of the world gets so loud that we forget the common things like kindness and respect? or gratitude, or, these really basic things. So what we did is we sat down with the team, and this has been years ago, and said, what are those attributes, behaviors that connect all of us all over the world, regardless of where we come from? And we listed 100 and ultimately came up with 5. And we said, these 5, it could be more than these 5, but if we focus on these 5, so when the world gets a little loud and noisy, if we just focus on these 5 things, then we can start to quiet the noise and create change. So being a noticer, the first pillar in Red Shoes Living is awareness, increasing your awareness. And it takes on all kinds of different forms, but it's saying, let's turn the negative noise down. If there's somebody standing right in front of you, let's pay attention to them. Let's listen to them. Let's listen more than we talk. Let's really try to empathize and understand what they're saying to us. If it's a customer, if it's a vendor partner, if it's a stranger, no matter what, let's increase our awareness. So awareness becomes the first pillar in the Red Shoes Living framework. It's also saying, be aware when there's an opportunity, as you say, to serve. I find myself on airplanes quite a bit, and there's always an opportunity to help somebody put a bag up, or to at least even make eye contact and say hello and good morning. I mean, the impact that has stands out for the positive immensely, especially if somebody's story is that they were rushing to the airport. And in fact, I can tell you a story. I remember sitting on a plane. This has been years ago. I was in the middle seat. It was a last minute flight. I wasn't happy about it. I thought, oh my gosh, I've gotten precious. I can't even sit in a middle seat anymore. And a gentleman rushed onto the plane, and, he was sweating a little bit. You could tell he was probably on the run. He sat down and didn't say anything to me. And I just sat there in the middle seat for a minute. And I looked over at his right shoulder. I looked to my left, and he had a little peanut butter and jelly on his dress shirt. So I sat there for a minute and waited for him to kind of, collect himself. And I said, how are you? And he said, I'm fine. I said, did you rush today? And he's like, oh yeah, I didn't think I was going to make it. I said, do you have children? And he said, I do. And I said, well, how many? And he told me, and I said, are they younger? And he said, yeah, I've got a young one. And I said, do they like peanut butter and jelly? And he goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, that's what kind of made me late. I was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I said, you got a little bit on your shirt. And he and I just had this moment of laughter, and we talked about my kids, but there's a connection, a human connection. So, again, when you increase your awareness, so much starts to change in the world. You see the world in a completely different way. The second pillar is gratitude. Flexing the muscle of gratitude. So for me today, being on with you today, Jeremy, being able to share this message, I'm incredibly grateful for it. So, I often say that I could bore people to death if I talked about the things that I was grateful for the minute I woke up this morning until right now. It's something you have to increase your awareness and say, I'm grateful for my pet that was just walking behind me. I'm grateful for the sun today. I'm grateful for, a hot cup of coffee and water and a good night's rest and, all of these things. So awareness and gratitude. Now, these tie both into business as well as into our personal lives. That's what makes Red Shoes Living, so profound, is it's not just a work thing. The third one is everybody has a story. Jeremy, as I've gotten to know you and you've gotten to know me, we have increased our awareness. We've increased our level of gratitude for each other. I've also gotten to know more about your story, and you've gotten to know more about mine. This is where we connect. We spend half of our lives doing our job. There's 24 hours in a day. If you take our sleep time, and let's say we're fortunate enough to get 8 hours, I know that's a struggle for many of us, but if we took that 8-hour period and pushed it aside, we now have 16 hours in a day where we're alive and we're awake. Let's say half of those or more probably are at work, and the other half, are at home. And so, when we really focus on that, we want to be, if we're unhappy in our work environment, if we're unhappy in our personal environment, we're unhappy half of our life. So when we connect as human beings, and in our work environment, when we can, where appropriate, connect and say it's not just about the work, but it's also about how we work together. So everybody has a story becomes incredibly important to connect with people and understand where they're coming from on any given day. Kindness and respect. I'm fiercely competitive. I'm sure you're fiercely competitive, but as I've met you, you're also a very kind and respectful person. There's a reciprocity to that. That makes me want to show up as the best version of myself for you, because you create that space of kindness and respect. You hold me accountable, I know, and coming on to this show to be the best version of myself. That's what you would expect. That's what I would expect you to expect. But again, you bring kindness and respect forward. Some of the best leaders that I've worked with on executive teams are hard charging. They hold their teams accountable, but they come at it with kindness and respect. And so again, there's a reciprocity to that on the other side. And then finally, putting yourself out there. We have to continue to ask the questions. We have to ask for the promotion. We have to take the chances. We have to put ourselves out there both professionally and personally every day. And that kind of completes the cycle. So when we take those 5 pillars and we apply them into leadership, we apply them into the customer experience, we apply them into the culture of the organization, and we apply them to our personal lives, we start to lift. We start to create space around us for opportunities and people to step into that space. We put off an energy. You started with energy. There is nothing more important today than energy. And so, if we're sleeping well and we're hydrating and we're aware that we have to take care of ourselves to take care of others, all of that ties back into what we call red shoes living and standing out, for the positive. I think I hit all the pillars there.
You did good. Absolutely. So, well, and you're working on another book. And so talk about the next project.
Yeah, through COVID, we had companies reaching out to us like the NFL and McDonald's and many organizations saying, look, we're going through change. Can you help us get through this change? And so Nancy, who's our chief of staff, myself, and our team sat down and said, okay, let's think about this. When adversity comes our way or an opportunity presents itself, what are the simple steps that we go through to get through that? And we all agreed, we call this red shoes rising. So there's red shoes living and red shoes rising, which is really the next level. Where do we go from here? Well, the first thing we do is we have to make a choice to step into whatever the adversity is, or again, if it's an opportunity, to choose to step into it. As an example, in the case of COVID, nobody in the world had a choice. We were in it. So the choice is already made for us. The second thing that we all did, and some of us are still doing, is stepping through it. The step through is the greatest journey. It's the hardest part of this. How are we going to pivot? How are we going to work remotely? How are we going to do all of these things that, we used to do? In fact, you and I are on Zoom today doing this, and that's probably, a big byproduct of COVID and everything we went through. The key, though, to the step through, which is the second thing, is that we know we're going to learn so much and we're going to grow so much. It's a mindset. And then eventually, the third thing is we recognize that if we go through this and work together and we're elegant, even if we have to make all these changes, eventually we're going to step up. And the step up, every time I say that, I imagine being on top of a mountain and looking over the valley and saying, look how far we've come. And so now, what we did is we went and started talking to people and said, well, whenever you've had adversity in your life or you've had great successes, talk to me about the step in, step through, and step up. And the minute we ask that question, people go right through it. Oh, it was difficult. I had to step into it. I stepped through it. This is what I learned. This is what, I lost everything and I came back again, but eventually I arrived in this great place. So the book is about that. It's about not only how we see the world of step in, step through, and step up, but how have other people accomplish that. Even your story, Jeremy, would be incredibly compelling about your business and your personal life as you went through that difficult time, as an example. So that's the book. We're excited about it. And we're getting a lot of people that are inquiring and wanting to contribute to that, kind of their own stories. And we're excited to share a lot of that to the Red Shoes Living Network. So
absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, is you learn a lot yourself, but then to be able to share those lessons with others, that's the power of everything we're talking about. So carry that into, how can we follow your efforts? Where can we get the book, and obviously be in the loop for the next book? So where do we go to follow you and your efforts?
Yeah, on social media, we're all over social media, at Lonnie Mayne, on Instagram, and at Lonnie Mayne. If you just follow that, you hit Facebook and Instagram. We're active there, contributing content. And then our website is either under Lonnie Mayne or under Red Shoes Living. Our first book, Red Shoes Living, is there. And by the way, both books were meant to complement each other. So you could read Red Shoes Rising when it comes out independently of Red Shoes Living, but there will be a tie over. But we intentionally wrote them that way. But we just want to share one more thing to the group. Find us, connect with us. We respond back. Nancy Williams, our chief of staff, is just incredible. She responds to every inquiry we get every single day. But the one thing that I wanted to say is, from a Red Shoes Living perspective, every single person has their own version of Red Shoes. So every interaction I have, my interactions with you, Jeremy, I've gotten to learn what I call your version of Red Shoes, how you stand out for the positive in the work you do and how you live your life. It's a perpetual model. It's not a model that I created and it's still my model. It's no longer my model. It's everybody's model. And I think that's what's made it so popular. So keep doing your version of Red Shoes Living and teach the world that, so we can all learn from it and get better as we move forward.
I love it. Well, and just the illustration, you think about red shoes, red shoes can be loafers, they can be tennis shoes, they can be boots, they can be stilettos. I mean,
I've seen it all.
Version of red shoes, exactly. Yeah.
That's right. And to that point, it doesn't have to be red shoes. It could be a blue hat or a kerchief, or it's just a reminder to say, look, I'm going to stand out for the positive today in how I treat you, how I work, how I live my life, etc. That's it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Lonnie Mayne, thank you for all you do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. Pleasure to be with you.